The Detroit Pistons did play a game today against the New York Knicks, but this team has stopped taking the season serious and basically wrapped their season up early. So we're going to do the same thing. We're not going to take this team very serious.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Kuka Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Kuka Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We're free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. It's another great way to support the podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code all lowercase LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. The Detroit Pistons did play a game tonight. I'm recording this right after their loss, their 124-99 loss to the New York Knicks. The Pistons had 40 dropped on them by Dante DiVincenzo. Jalen Brunson had 28. Dante DiVincenzo had 11 threes made in this game. The Pistons didn't crack 100 points. The Detroit Pistons played Troy Brown Jr., Tosan, James Wiseman, Jane Ivey, Marcus Sasser, Malachi Flynn, Chimenzi Metu, Evan Fournier, Jared Rhoden, Buddy Boeheim. And if you're one of the lucky listeners of this podcast who have listened maybe not all year, or have tuned the team out and haven't paid attention to this team as often all year, you probably maybe know two of those names. You maybe know two of them, maybe three, but around two or three. So you may be sitting here asking, who the hell are these people? And I'm not even going to take the time to explain who they are to you guys, because it's as simple as this. And for the rest of the year, I guess I should start the podcast off saying this to you guys. Just real quickly, from here on out, throughout the rest of the offseason, I'm going to have Pistons fans on the podcast to talk about how they feel about this season and where the Pistons are heading and how miserable this season was. Get everything off your chest. So if you're interested in coming on the podcast and having a segment to come on here and really let your grievances out, comment in the comment section down below of the YouTube channel, or you can head over to my Twitter at Kuka Hill. You can DM me, and we're going to try to get as many fans as we possibly can on throughout the rest of the season, throughout the rest of the off season. So again, if you're interested in that, go ahead and do that. But like I was saying, I'm not going to explain who these guys are for those people who maybe haven't been watching the team all year and have been tuning in and out, because it's as simple as this. The Detroit Pistons stopped taking this season serious a long time ago. Maybe I'm not saying the players stopped taking it serious. Kay Cunningham still took it serious. Jane Ivey still takes it serious. He's still out there playing. I'm not saying the players stopped taking it seriously, though you could probably argue that some of the players stopped taking it seriously as well. The Pistons as a franchise stopped taking this season serious. Because I'm gonna go ahead and go out on a limb and say this. Every single Piston that is currently out and not playing, I'm going to take a guess and say not every single one of them actually is out because they just couldn't play. I'm going to take a guess and say some of those Pistons probably could play. And just like every season for the last 4 years, just like every season of the last 4 years of this rebuild underneath Troy Weaver, at the end of their season, they give up. At the end of their season, every single season for the last 4 years, this team has given up. Every single time. They have given up with 20 games to go, 25 games to go. And this season was supposed to be different. And if you guys don't believe me, just listen to this video real quick from Troy Weaver himself before the season on what the goals were supposed to be for this team this year.
Realistic goal. last 25 games.
So the Pistons' goals for before this season, according to Troy Weaver, realistic goal for our team is to play 82 meaningful games. We want to go down to the wire. We just look at the last 25 games and not be in contention. We want to be in contention for 82 games of the entire season. We are at March 25th, and the Pistons probably gave up their season and stopped caring a week ago, 2 weeks ago, probably. This team has stopped caring. They stopped caring a long time ago. So why should you guys care? I am actively on this podcast. Yes, this may hurt my own numbers. It is what it is. I am telling any of you guys who are watching this podcast, who are listening to this podcast, stop watching the Pistons for the rest of the year. Don't buy any tickets to any home games. Don't waste your money going down to see them. Give up or what's the word I'm looking for? Why am I drawing a blank? Remove or get rid of your Bally Sports membership. Don't watch their games on your phone. Don't watch the games on TV. Little Caesars Arena should be completely empty for the rest of the year because the Detroit Pistons don't want to take this season serious. Why are the fans? Why are the fans spending money to take this season serious? Needs to be over. So fans, I'm not joking. Stop watching the Pistons. Anything to do with the Pistons, just stop. Stop. If this is how the Pistons are going to play, they just forfeit the rest of the 10 games. Just forfeit. Forfeit these games. Just give up. Don't even show up for them. This is I don't got nothing else for you guys. I don't know what else. I don't got nothing else for you guys, for real. I'm sorry. I wish I did. Trust me, I have tried. I have tried so hard to try to find you guys some positive outlook. Each podcast I've tried. Because I don't want to be all negative. I don't want to. But this team has 12 wins. They are playing a rotation where only maybe one or two of these guys will be on the roster next year. Maybe. They played 10 guys against the New York Knicks. Maybe two will be on the roster next year. And what was supposed to be a competitive year for. If there was ever a more perfect way to just cap off this season, after the losing streak, longest losing streak in a single NBA season, after how bad it's gone, if there was a more perfect way to cap that off to really show just how bad it was, go look at the people who have been playing the last 3 games. This team, this franchise, has stopped taking this season serious, and so should you. That's my message to all of you guys. That's what we'll leave it at. This opening segment. When we come back, I honestly, guys, this is just going to be a rant-filled episode. This is just going to be a rant-filled episode. And the comment section, my mentions on Twitter, my DMs on Twitter after this episode, this is going to be a safe space. This is where we all can just scream into the pillow and let it all out. So, yeah, that's what you can look forward to when we come back. PrizePicks is America's #1 fantasy sports app with over 3 million members. They're the easiest, most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. You pick more than or less than 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. It's demon time on PrizePicks. You can now win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000. Demon and Goblins are the newest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports at PrizePicks. Squares marked with red demons or green goblins get you different payouts. You can now win up to 100 times your money with as little as 4 correct picks. And another great thing about PrizePicks is they offer injury insurance. If you have a basketball, football player get hurt in the first half and he doesn't return in the second half, that player is automatically rebooted, and that is absolutely big time. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy with PrizePicks. So I want to thank you guys again for somehow, some way, caring enough about this team to tune into this podcast again. Thank you for making us your first listen of every single day. Being available on all your podcast platforms. Hit the subscribe button to the YouTube channel. Leave us a 5-star review, whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. All of you guys who have supported the podcast throughout the year, despite what's gone on with this team, I really appreciate you guys. You guys are absolute real ones. We had a big jump with the team or with the podcast this year. Wish there was a big jump with the team. We had a big jump with the podcast this year, despite how bad it went. So, appreciate you guys. The Pistons, like, I don't think people truly understand. Like, truly, like, I know people know that this season was bad. Like, obviously, I know that everyone knows that this season has been terrible. But I truly don't think that people. I don't feel like people fully grasp. Maybe more so people outside Detroit, because it's not being talked about enough. I don't think they fully grasp just how bad this is. So, like, Keith Black Trudeau, who you guys know I've called many times the historian of his history itself. Follow him over on Twitter. A great basketball history mind. Knows everything about the history of the NBA. We've had him on the podcast before. He tweeted this out. With 10 games remaining, here are the worst 72 game records in Pistons history. Fifth is 2022 at 1953. Fourth is 1981, 1755. Third is 1980, 1656. And the top two worst records is 16-56, which was last year, and 12-60, which is this year. Which means 3 of the Pistons' top 5 worst records of all time have come in back-to-back seasons. I'll say it again. That means 3 of the 5 worst seasons in Pistons history have come in back-to-back seasons. The Pistons must have mistaken what all my Jordan shit looks like, because this is not what it's supposed to look like. That means winning. They got confused with what that means. I saw some people talking about earlier. Why isn't the NBA stepping in? And, like, if the Pistons end this season and no changes are made, I don't blame any Pistons fans for begging for the NBA to step in. I won't blame any Pistons fans for begging for the NBA to step in. Because this right here is one of the worst 3-year stretches in NBA history. In NBA history. And yes, that includes the Philadelphia 76ers process teams. Let's go look. You know what? Let's go look at what the 76ers record was during the process teams. First year, they were 1963. That's better than this year's Pistons. Second year, they were 18-64. That'll be better than this year's Pistons. Now, they did have a year that was 10-72, which, my God, like, 10-72, dude. Like, I'm not gonna lie to you, I didn't know that before. I like 10 games. So yeah, that team is worse. But I mean, 19, 18, like those two seasons of the process is better than the last 3 years for the Detroit Pistons. For the last 2 years in the Detroit Pistons, on par, basically the exact same. Like, the Pistons are basically being the process 76ers without trying to be the process 76ers, which is what's made it worse. Like, they weren't trying to be this bad this year, which is why they should be fired immediately as soon as the season. And they should have been fired weeks ago. Is that they weren't trying for this to happen. This wasn't supposed to happen. The Sixers were like, you can't really, like, to be honest, the coaching staff, you know, the front office, like, they were doing that on purpose. Like, they were actively trying to be the worst team of all time for those 3 years. Like, that was their goal. This year, the Pistons were not, like, their goal was not to be that. And they're being compared to the Prospect 76ers. And notice how I haven't even mentioned really anything from this New York Knicks game outside the opening bit about Dante DiVincenzo going off. If I were to talk about this game, things would just get more depressing. Jaden Ivey, 2 of 14 in this game. There's two things to say about Jaden Ivey, I guess. Like, one, he's continuing to struggle mightily, badly. He has not played well in a while. That's first, which is really concerning. I've voiced my concerns about Ivy throughout this year. But then the other thing is, God bless him. God bless him. Because everyone else is sitting out. No one else is playing. He decided he's going to keep playing. He's going to keep going out there. And he's being surrounded by these players. Like God bless him. God bless him that he's still out there playing. I'll tell you this much. If I was a player on this team and I saw what was going on, everyone's sitting out, and this is the roster I'd be playing with. Coach, man, my knee, it's killing me, man. Like, I don't know. I try to jump on it. It just, I think I'm done for the year, man. I think I'm done. Like that. You don't want Kuka Hill, the NBA player. That's why I'd be. I'd be the biggest scumbag out there. Like, as simple as that. Simple as that. You wouldn't catch me in cold day in hell out there with this roster, out there on that floor. For what? To embarrass myself? To make my stats worse? To what pride am I proving here? My pride was lost a long time ago at this point in the season. Pride was gone. To be honest, guys, I don't even know where I'm going. I don't think any of us know where we're going when we talk about the Pistons anymore. Like I said, this is just an open, diary. This is just an open, everyone just get everything out in the comment section. Tweet at me. DM me. Just get everything out. Truly, how does the Pistons franchise expect Pistons fans? They're lucky this game wasn't in Detroit, because I promise you the sell the team chants would have been louder than ever. And honestly, you guys don't understand what would be even more louder. What would be so loud it would kill everyone's ears in the front office, in the franchise. What would be even louder than chanting "sell the team" with the building filled to the absolute top? Would be that arena being completely empty. That arena being completely empty would be much louder than any chant you guys could yell during games. I promise you that. And that's what should happen at least at one point this season. I'm not joking. At some point this year, there's 11 games left, 10 games left. The Pistons fan base needs to deliver on that and just not show up. No one show up. As little people as possible show up. There's no reason to. There's no reason to. This is just I feel bad. I feel bad for Pistons fans. I've said this many times. Many, many times. But for those of you who are on social media, you see that the Pistons have become the laughingstock, they've become the laughingstock of professional sports. Not just the NBA, of professional sports. If you scroll social media, it's nonstop making fun of the Pistons. While I'm at work, I tune in to First Things First at 3:00. And every time they do their NBA rankings, the Pistons are at the bottom of the rankings, not at the bottom of normal rankings. They're in their own tier, which is relegation. Actively, there are shows saying that the Pistons need to be moved to Las Vegas, that the team needs to be taken out of Detroit. And at the end of this season, there's a good chance that everyone will be back. Not one person will be fired. Not one person will be held accountable for this. That's where we're at. I got nothing for you guys, man. I got nothing for you guys. And I guess I'll go ahead and preview this for you guys as well. For the rest of the year, after this podcast, I don't think any podcast I record is going to be about a Pistons game because they're not taking it serious. So I'm not going to either, and neither should you guys. So we're probably going to come up with some very interesting episodes. We're going to have some fun with it. We're going to try to bring some happiness. We're going to try to bring some smiles. We're going to try to bring some laughs to the Pistons community by not talking about this season's Pistons, by not talking about the final 9 games of this season where they'll probably be asking me to go out there and suit up. We're not going to do that. The fan base has been tortured enough this year. So we're going to try to have fun. We're going to try to have laughs after this podcast. After we get everything out on this podcast moving forward, we're going to try to have some laughs because, damn it, the Pistons fan base needs it. So when we come back, we'll wrap this up, and I'll give my final thoughts really on the Pistons season, because in my mind, this is where the Pistons season ends. They may have technically 9-10 games to go, but this season's done. This is where they decided that their season was going to end. So I'll give my overall thoughts on the season in the final segment. And then we'll forget about this season completely, and we won't talk about it no more in future episodes. It's done. Unless something changes, we're done. So stay tuned for that when we come back. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp. Give online therapy a try at betterhelp.com/LockedInNBA and get on your way to being your best self. Sometimes we all need the opportunity to get something off of our chest. Big or small, certain things can really start to get to you, and it's important to let that out, especially to someone who's unbiased in your life. Just like I'm using this podcast right now to come on here and just rant and get everything off my chest that I can think of. People usually have things a little bit more important, more things that matter more in life than your favorite sports team being this historically bad. And for those things, you should give BetterHelp a try, especially if you're thinking of starting therapy. It's entirely online. It's designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. You get an online therapist, and if you're not vibing with that therapist, you can switch just like that, all entirely online. It's amazing over at BetterHelp. So visit betterhelp.com/LockedInNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedInNBA to get 10% off your first month with BetterHelp. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you're listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. This is my final thoughts on this season. I'm going to give you guys my and of course, when the season actually ends, technically, we'll do I'll obviously do a season recap episode. I might have some fans on to do it. I might have a guest on to do it, because at that point, I don't know if I'll have it in me to talk about the season again. But like I said, this is where the Pistons season has ended for me. This is where the Pistons have told me and told all the fans and told everyone who's paying attention that this is actually where their season's done. We don't care no more. This season, and these will be my final comments, and then we're logging off here. This season has been this has been the biggest disgrace to Detroit sports since the Pistons or the Lions 0-16 season. And damn it, I wasn't really that old for the 0-16 season, so I'm going to say this is the most disgraceful sports season that I've ever witnessed in the Detroit sports era. It probably is the most disgraceful season in Pistons history. These last 4 years have been the most disgraceful 4 years in a glorious, honorable, rich, culture-filled franchise. It's been the worst 4-year stretch in this franchise's history. It's been the most disgraceful 4-year stretch in Pistons history. It's been an embarrassing 2-year stretch in Pistons history, in Detroit sports history. It's been a slap in the face to every Pistons fan that has spent money to go buy a ticket, to buy memorabilia, to go buy a jersey, to buy a poster, to do anything remotely involving the Detroit Pistons. It's been a spit in the hand and then a slap across the face to every single one of those fans over the last 2 years. That's how bad this season was. It's a laughingstock. They are embarrassing. And every single person that has any responsibility for how this season went, for how last season went, for how the last 4 years in Detroit Pistons history has went, should be fired as soon as this season ends. Honestly, again, if it was up to me, they'd be fired tonight. They would be fired tomorrow. And like I've said many times in the podcast before, I've asked the question, tell me what's the argument for them to not be fired. I'm done asking that question, because really that question was only being asked to be polite and try to avoid having to say what the truth was, so I don't have to say it out loud. But I'm done hiding around it. I'm saying it just straight up. They need to be fired right now. every single one of the people in this franchise that was a part of the most disgraceful era in Pistons history, and that's not opinion, that is fact. These last 2 seasons are the worst seasons in Pistons history. This season is the worst season in Pistons history. It's the worst season in Detroit sports history since the 0-16 Lions season. And right after that one, it might be second. This has been an embarrassment. They've turned the Pistons franchise into a laughingstock. It's crazy. It's sad to see. And no one should care about this team for the rest of the year. And honestly, I'll take it a step further. Not a single fan should care about this team or pay attention to this team or give this team any effort, any thought. If going into the offseason, no changes are made. Not a single person should care at any point in the offseason if it's the same people making the same decisions. And like I said, I'll end it off with this. There should be a home game this year where the Detroit Pistons fan base decides to not show up and leave Little Caesars Arena empty. There's no reason why to keep pouring your money, your hard-earned money, into a team that's not taking you serious, that's not taking themselves serious. There's no point in doing it. It's just robbery at that point. I don't care anymore. I don't care anymore. I'm just going to say what's real and what's happened this year. It's been pathetic. It's been pathetic and embarrassing. And everyone's hands are covered in blood for this. Like everyone's hands is dirty. And they shouldn't get a chance to clean them. They should all be fired. This season was atrocious, and it was embarrassing to everybody. I'm sorry to Pistons fans that they had to witness this. I'm sorry to Detroit sports fans. And hell, I'm sorry to NBA fans that there is a team like this in the NBA stinking up the NBA product. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. Free and available on all your podcast platforms. Appreciate you guys. Stay safe out there. Find something else to do with your guys' day at 7:30 Eastern time every night. There has to be something better. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.